Hi, the ICQ podcast team has a special invite here from Yaesu today to look at the FT DX 101 D model, which is the 100-watt model. The 200-watt model will be coming in the UK very soon as well. This radio is released at the end of April 2019, and we've been very lucky to spend time here with Colin Dean at Yaesu UK to look at the new rig that has been widely anticipated for amateurs coming on the market very, very soon. So I hope you enjoy, guys, and if you're interested in the rig, I'm sure contact either Yaesu or your local dealer for more information, and obviously place your orders.
So we're here looking at your FT DX 101. We're going to do some interesting things on it today. Really enjoying the fact that you've taken the time of opening up for us and showing us this product. So what do you see this product being used mainly as?
Okay, so this is our new hybrid SDR radio. It has two receivers on it, two independent receivers, and we would consider it for the users like contesters and DXers and people that need a high performance radio. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I really like about it is your big screen. I don't need me glasses.
It has a DVI-D output on the back, so you can put even a 60-inch screen on the back if you wished.
I don't need it that much, but we're getting close. Now, it's a hybrid SDR, isn't it? So you've got the best of both worlds.
Yes, that's right, because one of the problems you can get with some SDRs is that you have very strong signals and very weak signals on the HF bands, and so you can get problems with overloading and intermodulation problems. So you'll tend to see signals that are not really there. So what they've done is they've tried to improve the RF performance by using some of the traditional sort of technology you'd use on a conventional superhet alongside the modern SDR technology.
Yeah. And you've got lots of extra filtering abilities with an SDR, haven't you?
Yeah, so in addition to the conventional sort of filtering, with the front end roofing filter and so on, SDR allows you, of course, to have greater control on the audio filtering side. So on this radio, you will have, very configurable filters for sideband or for AM. You can adjust the width. You've got notching. You've got, digital noise reduction. And because it's all done in numbers, you can get, performance that would be hard to do with analog components.
Yeah. So I know you've tried it on the air. You're one of the lucky few that's had a go on your car. How good is it?
It's very good. In fact, I did compare it with some other radios, and I found that the receiver was very good, very sensitive. And I tried it with, strong signals, weak signals, and medium-sized signals, and strong versus weak, and I found it performed admirably. And I was able to pull out signals with a great deal of clarity.
That sounds great. And obviously, I'm going to ask you where you see this fitting in your product range. Is it in the middle? Is it at the top end or whatever? How would you see it fitting in your product range?
So really, I would say it comes alongside the FT-DX 5000, similar in the fact you've got two receivers and with all the controls you'd expect on a contest-grade radio. But if you want to have the ability to use, say, like the waterfall displays so that you can sort of see signals that are happening in the past, and there's an advantage to using this type of radio.
Yeah. So you mentioned contesters. So you're really interested in being able to look at two bands at the same time. Yeah. Got to be a great idea. What about people, anybody at the moment spoke about taking them on a DXpedition?
And in fact, some have already, yeah, so we should see some of these maybe on a nice beach somewhere, on a nice island, or up a mountain somewhere. But
yeah. You didn't get invited to go on the nice beach then?
No. Maybe next year.
Yeah. So one of the things we always get beaten up for, and I know Dean is with us today as well, but what's the RRP on this one?
So at the moment there are two models available. You've got the FT-DX 101D, which is the 100-watt version. That's going to be available at the end of this month, around the 30th, and we expect the price to be £3,149.
That's good. And when you say the end of this month, we're actually in April 2019, so end of April 2019, the first models will be coming available. So, you know, place your order with your dealers now, because they will be available fairly soon. Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot, because Dean did say you haven't exactly got the price for the 200 watt model yet, but
Not yet.
that's coming soon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's going to have 200 watts. It's also going to have more filters included as standard. And we expect around the end of July, but that's to be confirmed at the moment.
Yeah. So don't hold Carl up against the wall if it doesn't come out in July. It's a fair description. We're trying to give you an idea. We're not going to talk price on the higher model yet, because in fairness, the boys haven't got it sorted. So that's fair. So we're now sitting in front of this lovely rig that Carl's going to show us how it works. And we spotted a really nice feature just before we started recording this bit, in that you can change the colour of the waterfall. Hence, the left-hand waterfall is in our corporate colours orange. But we also, Edmund was saying, this is a good idea. Being able to change the colour must be a good thing on the waterfall, because if somebody's visually impaired or colourblind or whatever, that's going to help them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And there's a range of colours that can be adjusted. In fact, here we've got a menu option here, the S menu, which allows you to adjust all the settings for the waterfall. So if we press the little button here, a menu comes up with a whole range of options. So we can go to colour, and you get a range of colours for the waterfall display. If you notice, it's got two options, because we have colours for the main waterfall, and we've got colours for the narrowband SDR as well. And so there's a range of colours.
Yeah, and we decided that the ICQ could only have the main one.
Absolutely.
Because
we want orange.
yeah, that has to be in orange. So a little bit of fun here with Carl. But Carl, you've been showing me some of these things. It's deal receive. It's colour coded, white and blue, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, one of the important things with the 101 was ergonomics. And there's a whole range of features that make it nice to use and operate. Now, one of those features is a color coding system. So here we have the main, which is in white, and we've got the sub receiver, which is in blue. So all the controls that are related to the main receiver and the sub receiver are color coordinated on the front panel. So for an example, on the main receiver in white, we have the main audio gain, and we have the main RF gain control.
Yeah.
Likewise, we have such as width and shift and notch and contour, and they're all color coded, so it makes it easier to operate.
Yeah, I certainly do. Now, apart from the screen, you've carried on that same color coding even on top of the band switches, because at the moment we're on 20 meters for both, but you've got a blue and a white LED indicating, so
Yes.
that's consistent across the product, isn't it?
That's correct.
Now, I remember being a FT847 owner. We had the main tuning dial, and we had the ring round the outside, and that ring round the outside effectively was just a fast frequency move up or down the band. You've moved on a much more since that, and you were showing me this is actually a multi-function, the second ring, isn't it?
That's correct. So there is a range of functions it will provide. There are some switches around the outside of the multifunction dial, and by pressing those you can control what that dial does. So for an example, if we press the selection here for main and sub, you can see we've got the main receiver on this side and the sub receiver on this side. So the main dial obviously can control the frequency of the main receiver, but then the little multifunction dial can then control the frequency of the sub receiver.
Which is great, and it gives you far more control over what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's even possible with practice to adjust both receivers at the same time.
I haven't got 10 fingers on one hand yet.
Just takes a bit of practice.
All right. No, that's good. And your waterfall function. I mean, when I was reading the spec, we've got used to a 2D waterfall, and you can display in 2D, I know.
Can, yeah.
But you have a 3D waterfall, which is quite interesting how you can see the depth as well. That's a fairly unique feature, I would have said.
I believe so, yes. And of course, one of the things about having the 3D waterfall is you can see what's gone on in the past. So you can see, perhaps, if you're in a contest environment or something, by looking at the waterfall and looking for signals in the past, you can tell, oh, maybe somebody is operating on another frequency. So then you can then QSY to that frequency and try and work that station.
Yeah, sounds good to me. The other thing is, you were telling me earlier, is the waterfall displays a meg of bandwidth, I believe, and apart from 10 meters, you've pretty much got it nailed, haven't you? And not everybody, if you're on 10 meters, you'd only be operating either CW or SSB, so pretty much a meg should be enough to cover most, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. In fact, because you've got a meg on the main and the sub, it is possible to cover the entire of 10-meter band all at once.
There you go. You heard it first here. Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's a good one. That's a good one. So, you were showing me some of the filtering and the filtering. We were looking at CW earlier, and you were actually quite narrowing down. But it also, you were actually decoding CW as well, weren't you?
Yes, in fact, the radio has a range of decoders built in. Basically, you select the mode that you're interested in, so that could be PSK or RTTY or CW. You tune the signal in, and then you turn the decoder function on, and then it will display the text on the screen.
Well, it decodes CW better than I do.
And probably better than me too.
Yeah, and yeah, so you'll be able to decode CW and PSK and RTTY. So if you're in a RTTY contest, this is going to be very, very useful because it'll give you a secondary understanding. So you might decode it, but I might as well decode it on the radio rather than having a separate device. So very, very good on that, I would suggest. Any other features you'd like to show us?
So you've got a range of control of what you can see on the screen. I would say you've got two completely independent receivers. There are 3 antenna sockets on the back. You can configure each receiver to use an independent antenna connection. That's very useful if perhaps you have a separate antenna for maybe low frequencies, maybe for top band or 80 meters. And then maybe you have a tri-band antenna or something like that, a Yagi for the higher bands. It then allows you to configure the receivers to use those different antennas.
Yeah. Is the third antenna a receive-only antenna, or is it just like a 3 antennas? You could have 3 sympathizers.
It can be configured in both ways. So it can either be a transmit and receive antenna port, or it can be configured for receive only.
Well, that sounds good. Now, I'm going to show my ignorance, but if you had an ATU built in here, you're literally going to do away with antenna switches and all the bits and pieces as well, aren't you?
Yes. As long as you've only got 3 antennas, you'll be just fine.
I haven't got enough room for much more than that. So, I mean, in fairness, I think I've sat in front of this for a little while, and I can see that this feels to me the ergonomics are right. All too often, and when I used to work for a dealer, they used to say, people would come in and say, which radio shall I buy? And I used to say to them, at the end of the day, you've got to sit in front of it. If it's pig ugly, you're not going to use it. Choose a radio that you find is eye candy as much as anything else and go from there. And I think Yaesu have done a very, very good job on the layout and the ergonomics on this one.
Absolutely. And as someone who's tried using it, I feel it was a very easy to use radio. Even without reading the manual, you can go straight onto the radio and use it.
Yeah. Well, we do have a manual for but we won't make you read it now. But yes, it's a lovely piece of kit. In my opinion, I'd love one. Mrs. B's sitting across the room from me. I think I better tell her to win the lottery quick. I've seen some interesting bits at the top end of the bands this does. Yeah, I mean, it's an HF rig, but it doesn't just stop there, does it?
No, that's right. So in common with a lot of these type of radios, as well as covering obviously up to 10 meters, it has the 6 meter band, which will also give you 100 watts as it does on HF. But it also covers the 4 meter band. and will give you a full 50 watts on that band.
Which is something that is certainly a band I'm thoroughly interested in. And it's 50 watts multi-mode, so you're not just limited to your PMR FM, are you?
No, that's right. So you've got the same modes that you've got on HF and 6, you've also got on 4.
So that's a very, very interesting thing. And it'll be, as you've told me, and I'm just reiterating, you can have different bands on the two VFOs. So you could be top band on, say, the main, and what was it, say, 4 meters on the sub. I mean, that would be extremes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that's very easy to configure on the front panel. So as we said before, we've got 3 antenna connectors, completely independent. So I can configure, for an example here, I've got my main receiver on the 20 meter band, and then with a simple change of some buttons, I can press the sub button. I can go up onto, say, the 6 meter band, for an example. I can change the antenna connection to 3, and that would be completely independent. So I can have a 4 meter Yagi or a 6 meter Yagi connected to one antenna port, listening to all the activity on that band, whilst listening to the DX on 20 meters.
So as Carl has actually bent my brain showing me all these wonderful features, he's now going to show me the hybrid SDR receiver and what it can actually do. So come on, Carl, blow my mind again. Show me this hybrid SDR receiver.
Okay, so on the FTDX 101, it has 2 receivers. As we said before, it has a main receiver and a sub receiver. And as we said, they're completely independent. Now, each receiver actually has 2 SDRs.
Yeah.
So it has a wideband SDR, which can go up to 1 megahertz wide. As we can see here, if we press the span button, I can go up to 1 megahertz of spectrum, and I can see all the signals that are in that space. In addition, in order to improve the receive performance, particularly in the harsh conditions on HF bands where you've got broadcasters that are very strong next to maybe some weaker amateur signals. So what they do is they have the front end of a superhead, so it has a low noise mixer, it then and oscillator. It then feeds into either a 9 meg or an 8.9 meg IF. It then has a selectable roofing filter, which we can do from the front panel. As standard, we have 600 Hz for CW, 3 kHz for sideband, and 12 kHz for AM. But in addition, there are some optional roofing filters available at 300 Hz for CW and 1.2 kHz for the single sideband. So what this does basically is makes it work better in crowded band conditions.
That certainly sounds good. And having a 1.8 filter on one of my rigs, 1.2 is going to really pick your signal out of that crowded band, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we all know what it's like in a contest where stations only seem to be about 1 or 2 kilohertz apart. It will really help you bring those signals out.
Yeah, so that certainly sounds great. And I don't know, there's just so much about this rig. It's one you guys have got to see. And ideally, Yaesu would like you to stick your hand in your pocket and buy one, obviously. But if you are looking to buy another rig fairly soon, from what I've seen, this is the sort of rig you should be looking at. It's got lots of features, lots of capabilities, and if you're a serious HF operator, this is probably the rig to go with, I would say.
Okay, so we have Edmund Spicer with Mike Zero Mike November Golf. He's had a quick play with the rig today. I've noticed as well how clear that display is, and from a usability point of view from your end, they say not only is the touchscreen really, really clear, but how quick that screen pushes out to the external monitor. It's very, very easy to use, isn't it?
There's no lag at all between what you hear through the loudspeaker, the visual representation on this screen, and what you see on the monitor, even when the screen is displaying more than one method of display, and the fact you can put it on a really large monitor such as this one, and the colours are customizable, make this very well adapted, I think, for people who might be colourblind or otherwise have problems with their sight.
Or more importantly, like the ICQ Orange. The other thing I've noticed as you've been working away there is Yaesu made quite a big thing about the new dial and how they improved their dial. And notice how easy you found that to actually navigate through the band as you're working away through that. Very easy to use, no stress upon the finger, etc. I mean, how did you find that from a usability point of view?
I hadn't realised until we came here today there are actually two dials. There's the one here at the front and there's one nearer the back. I haven't used the back one at all since I've been sitting here, but I can put my finger in the little dimple here and just turn it very easily. Doesn't need a great deal of force or pressure, and it feels very nice at the end of my finger there. So it's very similar to the FT 991 in that respect. Indeed, the whole layout of the front of the radio is similar to the 991, although obviously it's a lot longer this way. So if you have used that radio in particular, but in general terms any recent Yaesu rig, I don't think you would have many problems just sitting down and using this straight off without reading the 122 page manual first, which I must confess I haven't done yet.
Exactly. And audio quality as well, from what you're hearing through, I mean, it's very impressive, isn't it? Just from the loudspeaker in the box itself, rather than actually have to put headphones on. That audio speaker built into the actual device itself is actually very impressive.
To my ears, the audio does sound very nice. I'm not an extreme audiophile in the way that some people are, admittedly, but I could quite happily sit here and listen to what's coming out of the loudspeaker on top here. It's quite sizable, you can see from the size of the grill, so you don't have to turn the volume up very far for it to be more than loud enough, and if you turned it up all the way by accident, then you would be able to hear the audio from this radio from quite a long distance away, I think.
So all in all, on a very brief road test of the new FT DX 101D by Yaesu, it's a very easy to use, very functional rig coming to the market at the end of April 2019.
It is. When I first set eyes on it, I thought, am I going to be able to use this intuitively, because there are an awful lot more buttons on the front of this than there is on my 991, but that's actually an advantage because, for example, on my 991, if I want to change bands, I have to press a button somewhere over here first, then the display, which is a lot smaller than this one, this is very wide and shows a lot of information relatively speaking, the display would change to a selection of touch options, and then I would have to select the band that I wanted. With this, there's a dedicated button for every band that exists, from top band all the way through to 70 megahertz, 4 meters, no gaps at all, and just a dedicated button, so I don't have to think or worry about which button over here to press, to then press another button to select the band. I can just go straight to it and there it is. Same with the mode selection. There's a dedicated button for SSB, CW, break-in or not if you're doing Morse code, and if you press the button of interest more than once you can then flick between the options. So we're on 20 meters there, where in almost all cases amateurs would use USB upper sideband, but if I press the SSB button a couple of times I can toggle between LSB and USB if I wanted to use it for whatever reason. It's a really well appointed radio this. It will do FM on 10 meters and 6 meters if you enjoy using the various repeaters on those bands. Doesn't do C4 FM, but really for HF, C4 FM is not the perfect mode to be using anyway. There's no antenna matching unit built in, but if you are the kind of amateur who's using a top of the range or near to the top of the range radio such as this one, you're probably using resonant antennas or beams, so you probably wouldn't want to use an antenna matching unit anyway, and you can always plug an external one in round the back. And you've got 3 antenna sockets, all of them SO239 sockets, so not any end sockets for people who might want to use this with 6 and 4 meters. But it's really well appointed round the back. I've not read the manual at all. I've sat down and straight away I've been able to use it and have a tune around and have a play. So in my initial brief first impression, in all honesty, I can find nothing to say about this radio that I dislike. So thumbs up from me.
Well, it's been a very informative time here today with Yaesu looking at the FT DX 101D, the 100-watt rig that's been widely anticipated on the market. We'd like to thank Dean and Carl from Yaesu for being very hospitable to us today and looking after us and letting us have a play with the new rig. I really hope you've enjoyed this review, and if you've got any questions, you feel free to let us know via our usual channels, either at icqpodcast.com through the contact us section, or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments below, and we'll certainly see what we can do in terms of helping you answer those questions, or failing that, contact Yaesu in your local market. We're here at Yaesu UK, but I'm sure Yaesu America and Yaesu Japan will be more than happy to answer your queries, or your local dealer who has Yaesu support. So hopefully it's of interest to yourself.